Hi guys, and welcome to this video on the full moon in Leo that's coming up on the 12th of February 2025. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be with you today as always. So this full moon in Leo happens on the 12th of February at 1:53 in the afternoon, and that's based on my time zone in the UK. The chart you see next to me here, that's a snapshot of the sky at the moment this full moon will take place. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to analyze this chart to see how the planets interact, what energy they create amongst themselves, and how that'll influence you. And once I've done that, I'll go through each sign of the zodiac, Aries through to Pisces, to give you a specific message for your sign of the zodiac. And please watch my horoscopes in this order: for your rising sign first, then for your sun sign, and finally for your moon sign. So this full moon in Leo is known as the snow moon. Astrology is based on the seasons and it's based on the northern hemisphere. And what I've discovered by looking at this chart is really the question of this full moon in Leo is, what have you brought in from the cold? What have you kind of embraced in your life? What have you saved? And where have you given a lot of your time and energy to that thing or relationship or career that really either is worthy of that or that has no business being in your life? And how can you decide between the two? And where can you make space to get rid of the things that don't work for you? And how can you give more energy to the things that you do? Okay, so the first thing that's interesting about this chart is that we have Mars, the planet of masculinity and drive and ambition. That's still in retrograde until the 23rd of February. Whenever a planet is retrograde, the energy is expressed inwardly. When it's direct, the energy is expressed outwardly. And Mars is about what it is you want, what it is you're going to fight for, and what you're not going to compromise on. And it's in retrograde in Cancer. So in this case, it's an opportunity to really put all of your energy into taking care of yourself and saying, what is best for me? Also, what's coming up in March is that on the 1st of March, we have Venus, the planet of love and beauty and creativity. That goes retrograde until the 12th of April. So here during this full moon in Leo, it's still direct. And when Venus is direct, it's time to give life to new things. So new endeavors, new projects, new relationships, new businesses. So with Venus being direct here, it's an opportunity to start new things which are worth your time and effort. And that's where this full moon in Leo comes in. It allows you to determine, this is something that I have really nurtured and taken care of, and it really gives me very little in return. So I'm going to get rid of it. And that then creates space for you to start new endeavors, which are actually going to serve you and benefit you in your life. Okay, so with this full moon, we have the sun at 24 degrees in Aquarius. That opposes the moon at 24 degrees in Leo. And if I'm looking at your natal chart, the sun represents your head, your conscious self, the identity that you're striving towards and what you want to embody in future. So what you're working towards, right? The moon represents your heart, your feelings, and what's going on inside of you, and it's what represents home. So the sun being at 24 degrees in Aquarius, the sun in Aquarius is in the sign of the humanitarian and the teacher. And in this case, then, it's an opportunity to be a humanitarian to yourself and to say, how do I use my time and energy effectively? There are only 24 hours in the day. And where am I being super, super charitable and helpful for the wrong reasons? Where does this not pay off? Either it doesn't work in a practical sense, or it's just me being overly sentimental and kind of giving my time and energy to something that really isn't worth my time. And how can I create an opportunity to get things organized so that during my days in a 24-hour period, that I'm devoting myself to things that actually have some sort of value in my life. 2 and 4 is 6. 6 is a temporary opportunity. So here there's a chance during this full moon in Leo to say, I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to take stock of my situation. I'm going to analyze it on an intellectual level, and I'm going to judge things on their merit. So if something works for me and for people around me, then I'm going to hang on to it. But if the opposite is the case, then I'm going to let go of that, no matter how tough this feels. This is known as the snow moon, so it is kind of a tough moment where it's making the decision between what am I going to embrace and bring into my home and let it sit next to me by the fire, and what am I going to kick out into the cold. So some of you may think this is a little extreme, but this is a full moon that encourages you to be extreme and to say, make the toughest decisions. And if something is not serving you, or worse than that, if it's harming you and you're still giving your time and energy to it, then it's time to show it the door. We've got Mercury, the communication planet, that sits 2 degrees away from the sun. That's at 26 degrees in Aquarius, and it's also direct. So when Mercury is direct, expect few issues with communication and transportation. So the analysis and the decisions that you reach during this full moon, you can trust. You're very unlikely to kind of misstep or to come up with the wrong answer here when you're looking at all of these things going on in your life. So Mercury at 26 degrees in Aquarius, 2 and 6 is 8. That's power. And in Aquarius, again, you have the opportunity here to communicate things which really, there's a powerful message here. The powerful message is this aspect of your life, whether it's a career or a relationship or a particular activity or something that you're involved with, a group that you belong to, is this something that has innate value to it or not? And if it doesn't have value, again, it's the same thing. There's the opportunity to let go of that, even if it feels difficult and it's kind of heartbreaking even to let go of something that you've been doing for a long time. This is an opportunity to say, listen, if it doesn't have any value, then it doesn't matter how long this has been part of your everyday experience. If it's no good, then it's time for it to do one. Okay. Then on the other side of the chart, 180 degrees away from the sun, we have the moon at 24 degrees in Leo. So the moon here in Leo is an opportunity for your inner child to come out and to play. And it says, my feeling in Leo is very much about warmth and what makes me feel free and like I can enjoy myself. It gives me the confidence to put myself in a position of being in the spotlight or presenting myself as I truly am. It's an opportunity basically to discover who your authentic inner child really is and what works for your inner child and what doesn't. So what makes me happy in earnest and what doesn't. And again, at 24 degrees, 2 and 4 being 6, there's an opportunity to make your inner child happy. And the way to do that is to use the sun in Aquarius. And as an adult on an intellectual level, with all your experience and everything that you have been through, to say, let me just get crystal clear on certain things that I'm doing in my life. And it can even be, ways of treating your own body. Is my diet a healthy one or not? Is the way I spend my 24 hours in a day, am I sitting around on the sofa for 8 hours and not accomplishing anything? Or am I being active? Am I doing something to move? And is that something that ultimately, in the long term, is going to build greater health and strength and a sense of well-being in my body? So just via this opposition of the sun and Mercury against the moon, there's total communication between what it is you're feeling on a subconscious level, the moon in Leo, so what your inner child is kind of feeling and experiencing, and what you're doing on a conscious level in the physical world as an adult. And to kind of oppose those, and it's almost like you're able to glimpse into the subconscious and you're saying, this is something that doesn't make me happy, and I can now actually understand that in earnest and become aware of it. And being this grown up, this is adult that I am, I have the freedom to make certain changes so that my inner child isn't suffering and isn't enduring things that it has no kind of place. There's no rhyme or reason for it to go through that. And me being the person who runs the show here, if I have the freedom to make changes, then I'm only going to bring things into my life. I'm going to bring things in out of the cold and into my warm inner space that are going to make my inner child happy. So the moon then, it forms certain relationships. First of all, it squares Uranus in Taurus, and that then creates other squares, creating a big grand cross. So if you look at the center wheel of the chart, you'll see these red lines, the moon in Leo squaring Uranus in Taurus. Uranus then squares the Sun and Mercury in Aquarius. That squares Juno at 28 degrees in Scorpio, and that squares back to the moon in Leo. And a grand cross in a chart is an area that has a lot of energy and friction associated with it, but it can also be an area of your life where you find it difficult to make a decision because you're pushed and pulled in so many different directions. So if a grand cross shows up in your natal chart, it's often an area where you may find that there's a lot of ho-humming back and forth, and it takes you a long time to kind of integrate the 4 points of this square and to make them work for you. So the first square between the moon and Uranus. Uranus is the planet of the miraculous, the unexpected, and also the chaotic. It's at 23 degrees in Taurus. Taurus is an earth sign. And 23 is 5. That's freedom. So Uranus gives you the opportunity here to throw your existing circumstances up in the air and to say, do you know what? Enough of the routine that I've got. I have the freedom to make changes so that I bring in structures that are exciting, that energize me, and that give me a sense of infinite opportunity. I can bring things in that feel exciting and that promise to create new wonderful experiences. That then squares over to the Sun and Mercury in Aquarius. So you'll be able to identify this opportunity on an intellectual level, and you're not going to be sentimental about it. Aquarius, even though it's known as the water bearer, is an air sign, and air, the element of air, is really about thinking and communication and making decisions. It's not sentimental whatsoever, and it just says if something is logical and makes sense, then okay, let's keep it, let's embrace it. But if it doesn't make sense, then what is the point of this? Bye-bye. The moon, not the moon, the Sun and Mercury then square Juno in Scorpio. Juno represents endless summer. It represents what makes you happy. And Scorpio is a water sign that's able to dive beyond the surface of things and is able to identify the root cause of something. At 28 degrees, 2 and 8 is 10, that reduces to 1. 1 is the vibration of the pioneer. So it's you, the scuba diver, diving down into the depths and being able to discover down there on the ocean floor, metaphorically, obviously, to see these are the things that make me happy. And they're right in front of me now. I've undergone this journey, and now I have discovered these treasure chests filled with gold, the gold being these are the things that make me feel shiny and like I'm prosperous and abundant in my life. These are the things that make me happy. So it's not just an intellectual exercise, although you're very supported in that, but it's also on an emotional level, looking beyond all the emotional connections that you've got and saying these are the things that genuinely make me happy, rather than the things that say these are the areas of your life that ought to make you happy but genuinely do not. So again, you're able to differentiate between genuine actual gold and fool's gold. That then squares back to the moon. So this big grand cross allows you to, when you bring it all together, to say, let me talk to my inner child first and foremost and look at what state that's in. Is it sitting there crying and upset? Then I need to make a lot of changes. Or is it already dancing around and having a good time? Does it feel free? Does it feel loved? Does it feel taken care of? And whatever the case may be, you're able to make improvements through this grand cross. We also have the moon forming a sextile, so it's 60 degrees away from Black Moon Lilith at 25 degrees in Libra. And in this case, it allows you to look beyond the obligations that you have for other people. So this showed up in one of the daily tarot readings that I do on my channel recently. And certain relationships in your life, you feel that you have to make those a priority because one, that's a family member, or it's a friend you've had for 20 years, or it's someone who can't do certain things for themselves, so they need you to jump in and save the day once in a while. You're able to look at those kind of things as well in a very unsentimental way, and you're able to say, do you know what? Am I really the person who's responsible for their life? I know all of this sounds a little brutal and a little harsh, but this snow moon is really urging you to free yourself of things that weigh you down and make you unhappy. And in order to attain that freedom, a little bit of a tough kind of mindset is required for you to kick those things out of your life. Those are the only relationships the moon forms. There's some other major aspect patterns in this chart which I want to touch on. So starting with Uranus and Taurus, that forms a trine, so it's 120 degrees away from Pallas at 28 degrees in Capricorn. That then trines the south node in Virgo, and that trines back to Uranus and Taurus. And when we have three trines combining in this triangle formation, that's called a grand trine. And a grand trine, if I'm looking at your natal chart, and to draw that up, I need your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth, it represents an area of major talent. And the grand trines are usually in one element, and this one is in the element of earth. So Uranus and Taurus is saying, do you know what? The practical circumstances of your life right now aren't as important as the ones that you could create in future. So look beyond the surface of things and ask yourself what could be. It trines over to Pallas, which I interpret as wisdom in a chart. That's at 28 degrees in Capricorn. And that says, where are you doing all the work and is that justified? That trines down to the south node at 29 degrees in Virgo, and I'm smiling because Virgo is an earth sign that is all about analysis and detail. It's ruled by Mercury, the communication planet, and at 29 degrees, 2 and 9, that's 11. That's the master number of service. So the big talent you've got via this grand trine is to say what serves me in my life and what doesn't, and what practical actions can I take to build structures in my life that genuinely make me happy, that give me a sense of freedom, and where I'm only doing work that has some sort of a payoff for me personally, that actually works for me. Or am I just kind of giving things away for the sake of what? Things not making sense? Or for someone else to be happy who could easily do that thing for themselves? So really, again, this talent that you've got is to say, I have now understood certain things and I'm going to make practical changes as a result of this understanding. We then have another grand trine. This one is in the element of water. So it starts with Mars in Cancer. That trines over to the midheaven in Pisces, and Saturn, the planet of structure and security, also sitting in Pisces, right on top of that midheaven. That trines back down to Vesta at 13 degrees in Scorpio. Vesta represents the hearth, the home, the thing that makes you feel cozy and warm and like you're comfortable and like life is good and easy. So this grand trine, and Vesta then trines back to Mars in Cancer, completing this next big blue triangle. So this grand trine in water gives you a talent to connect with the element of water, and water is all about your ability to connect either to the higher realms on a spiritual level, or your own intuition, or your own imagination and creativity in order to do things like write or paint. But it's also the ability to connect in a way that's healing. So Mars in Cancer in retrograde says the priority right now is for you to take care of yourself. That then trines over to the midheaven in Pisces and Saturn. On a spiritual level, you know that you're loved and supported, and that there's real security in having a spiritual practice, because you are a spiritual being having a human experience. So by tapping into your true spiritual self, that's really the most solid thing that you're ever going to find in life. So it doesn't matter if you rent or if you own your house, or if you have a career or you don't, or if you're in good physical health or not. What that's saying is that as long as you're connected to your spiritual self in some way, that's the biggest wealth and prosperity that you can find. Because if you are able to maintain a good connection with your spiritual self, the physical things, and this is my opinion, let me know what you think. But if you're in good spiritual condition, my argument is that the physical things then follow suit. So it's spirit first and then the earth, not the earthly circumstances and the spiritual second. Saturn in the midheaven trine back down to Vesta at 13 degrees in Scorpio. So again, I really understand what makes me feel like I'm getting a big hug, and like I'm home, and like I'm happy and I'm warm and I'm taken care of. So this grand trine is a talent to connect to your higher self and to understand how to take care of yourself better, and to understand what genuinely makes you happy, rather than, again, what says it's going to make you happy, but in reality it doesn't. So you're actually able to see beyond a lot of nonsense that most of us are kind of recipients of. Things where people tell us, oh, you know, this, you're so important to me, or I'm going to take care of you. But then the reality is often very different. So you're able to identify those things. First and foremost, is the promise delivered on? And second of all, what genuinely works for me and what doesn't? Let's see if we have any other major aspect patterns. We've got the two grand trines. We almost have a mystic rectangle, but one of the sides is missing. I'm usually quite generous when it comes to looking at major aspect patterns. So a mystic rectangle is made up of two trines that are parallel to each other and two sextiles that are parallel to each other, and they create a big blue rectangle. So this one, with one of the sides missing, starts with Uranus in Taurus. That trines down to the south node in Virgo. That sextiles over to Juno in Scorpio, and that then trines Neptune and the north node in Pisces. So there's almost mystic rectangle. And if you have a mystic rectangle in the chart, it is what it says on the tin. It means you're a mystic. You have an unusually powerful connection to the higher realms, and that you're able to have a dialogue between the realms of spirit and you as a spiritual / physical being here down on planet Earth. And that's often encapsulated very well in the High Priestess card in the tarot. So this one is in the elements of earth and water. They're both feminine elements. So Uranus in the south node, they say, take stock of your practical circumstances as they are now, and don't be overly attached to them. Be willing to let go of things that don't work. And then we have the water side of things. Juno already mentioned, this is what genuinely makes me happy and gives me a sense of my life is an endless, joyous summer. But then what I haven't mentioned is Neptune, the outer planet of the intuition and dreams. It's the higher octave of the personal planet Venus. So it's not just love on a romantic level, but it's love on a more human global level. And the north node is the direction you're moving in on a soul level. So if I'm looking at your natal chart, the North Node shows me your life purpose, ultimately the direction you're moving towards and what you want to accomplish in this lifetime. So these two, Neptune at 28 degrees in Pisces, Neptune rules Pisces, so it's very happy in that placement. It says, I am giving you access to the spiritual realms so that you understand what kind of nurtures and feeds your spirit and what you can do and how you can take charge of this and say, I'm going to maintain and embrace things that actually do nurture me, and I'm going to get rid of things that don't. And the North Node at 29 degrees in Pisces, 2 and 9 again being 11, master number of service, it's the universe saying, we're giving you access to all of this knowledge, all of this insight, so that you can make these tough decisions to get rid of things which don't help you out on a day-to-day level and which make you unhappy. So this is a wonderful full moon experience where there's an opportunity to, one, identify what works for you and what doesn't, and then on the surface of things to make those really ruthless decisions, as in if this person or this career or this living situation or this location or this diet, if they don't help me in earnest, then I'm going to get rid of them. And there's no in between. It's either or. It's really tough, and it's required in this sense because a lot of us hang on to things which don't help us. You know, addiction is a good example of that. The drug promises to make you feel good and promises to enable you to either be your true self, the self you've always wanted to be, or it allows you to overcome certain pains or difficulties or whatever. But the reality is that it just makes you addicted to that substance, and it makes you sicker and sicker and sicker. So this is a process of looking things in the eye directly and really judging it on its merit and saying, if you have a positive influence on my life, then I'm going to bring more of you into my life and nurture you and expand things. And if you don't work for me, then I think I've made my point. Then it's the other way around. So let me just check this chart that I haven't missed anything here. No, those are the major aspect patterns that really jump out at you or at me. The strongest modes are fixed, and Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is a fixed sign. So anything that has really been a part of your experience for a long time, you're not going to be overly attached to that. And even if something or a behavior or a job has been there for 20 years, you're not going to be reluctant to get rid of it if it doesn't work for you. And the strongest elements of the day, this full moon in Leo, are water and air. So first of all, I feel and I connect with my spiritual self. And then I look at things on an analytical, intellectual level, and I only embrace things that make sense on that intellectual level. Okay, so let's see what is happening here for each sign of the zodiac. Starting with Aries. Aries, for you the question is, which of your relationships are you solely responsible for keeping alive, so to speak? Where are you doing all the work and making all the effort? So where do you put in a ton of time, and where do you get very little in return? The opportunity to decide whether certain relationships, and that can be with people or careers or connections to places, are conducive to you realizing your hopes and dreams, and which are not. And this full moon in Leo gives you the ability to let go of the ones that do not serve you. Taurus, what work are you doing that you're most passionate about? You'll be able to compare this with your actual career, or if you're a student or you're retired, what you're studying or working towards, and whether that matches up with what you really want to be doing, or whether you need to make a change in that area. So the question for you, Taurus, Is it time to make a change? Have you tolerated this for long enough now, or do you need more pain? Or can you now make this tough decision, make the change, and then feel better as a result of the decision? Gemini, what is it that you're trying to communicate? Or what is it that you're already communicating that still has value to you? And what have you outgrown? What are you ready to move on from? What new information are you attracted to that could serve as a new area of interest? And that could also give you an area where you can express all of your experiences and your gifts and your talents in a new way that's exciting and unfamiliar. So what have you really mastered information-wise, and what new thing can you now learn that's going to be more of a good fit to you moving forward? Cancer, where have you blindly taken advice and guidance when it comes to your own finances, and what have you learned in the meantime that could mean a better way forward or a better way of operating based on your knowledge, your understanding? Look at your securities, your assets, your belongings and savings, and decide for yourself how you can get these assets or your money to work for you. You're your own financial advisor during this time. You've acquired information which you may not have had in the past. So it's important for you to no longer blindly take advice and then just accept that and implement it. Leo, and this sounds a little tough again, I'm sorry, but who's freeloading off of you or piggybacking on your light to get to where they want to be? So who's using you? What changes can you make so that you surround yourself with equals, with people who are on a similar journey that you're on, and with people who take as much as they give, so that you all can grow together as a community or as a friendship or a relationship. So for you, Leo, the question is, instead of carrying another person who may be unwilling to do the work for themselves, how can you make new connections with people who are more aligned with where you're at now? Virgo, what spiritual practices and what ways of taking care of your body and your soul, I would say, which ones of those genuinely work well for you and which ones do not? So has the new nutrition plan yielded the results that were advertised or not? Has the specific meditation technique that you've learned recently given you a greater sense of connection, or hasn't it? You'll be able to answer these questions and get rid of modalities you've embraced, and you're able to show those the door if they don't work as promised. So, those kind of things are often very subjective. If someone says, for you, mindfulness meditation would be the best, and you're like, okay, I don't know anything about meditation, so I'll listen to you. Maybe that TM is best for you. And here you get the opportunity to say, actually, this is the advice I was given. This hasn't worked, so I'm going to try something else. Libra, what have you been working on that's designed to realize your own hopes and dreams? And where have you been doing work that is designed to realize someone else's hopes and dreams? Where have the two become confused and you've become foggy and uncertain and you feel like you're in a state of limbo? For you, this is an opportunity to regain clarity and to commit to what is important to you at this point in your life and to end the confusion. Scorpio, Where have you made concessions in your work in order to satisfy the demands of other people in your life? Have you abandoned a project that you've been passionate about because your partner has told you that they need more attention from you? Or have you minimized the amount of time you devote to something because anyone in your life has said, listen, I don't want you to work so much, I want you to spend more time with me? So where have you resisted, and where have you been indecisive, and where have you caved in? Become clear on what matters to you the most, what offers the most potential for growth, freedom, and success, and make a decision to embrace that, whether then it is the work or the partner or the meditation practice or whatever it may be. Again, for you as well, it's an end to the confusion and an opportunity to identify what really works and then to become brutally effective in saying, this is the decision I'm making, and that's the end of it. Sagittarius, what are your areas of certainty and how have you used these? So these are areas of your life where you're an expert. And let's say if you took center stage with those areas of certainty and expertise, you could make a huge impact with those if you presented those publicly, right? Ask yourself if you've shied away from those kind of opportunities to share your unique knowledge and insights. And is this something that you want to make changes around? So if you've been kind of keeping yourself behind the scenes for whatever reasons and not sharing your gifts, you're able to become aware of that, and you're able to make the leap into putting yourself out there and saying, it is now time for me to share my knowledge and experience so that I can have a positive impact on the world. So if you're a Sagittarius who's wanted to make a big impact publicly, to put yourself into the limelight, and you haven't known what subject to speak about, you'll find it easy to identify what your areas of certainty and expertise are, and you'll be able to make a decision that this is what I'm going to do moving forward, and I'm going to make this a reality based on what I discovered during this full moon. Capricorn, what organization or organizations do you belong to where you're carrying the whole thing? And what do you get out of that personally? If the answer is not enough, you'll find it easy to make decisions around what the future is going to look like. As in, do you continue to carry the whole show or not? Aquarius, who in your life celebrates you for being your true authentic self and who merely tolerates you? Who encourages you to shine and grow and who tells you to tone it down a little because you're embarrassing them? Embrace the ones who encourage you and show the other ones the door. Pisces, what messages have you received from Spirit or from your own intuition that have promised you a better life with a great sense of well-being? Which of these have you resisted and which have you implemented? How can you fully devote yourself to act on these supportive messages that come from within in order to build a better life for yourself physically, spiritually, and emotionally? So how can you overcome any kind of last lingering parts of resistance to your highest good and actually embrace it instead? Okay, so that's what I get for you during this full moon in Leo. It doesn't seem like it's for the faint of heart. It encourages you to make really the toughest decisions. I hope it gives you an idea of what you'll be working with. If you would like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. To draw up your birth chart, I need your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. If you don't have the time of birth, by the way, there's a process called chart rectification where you send me 10 or more life events and I'm able to manually work out your time of birth. Once I have that, then I've got a chart like the one you see or saw next to me here in front of me, and then I can analyze that. So your vocational aptitudes, what's destined for you in certain areas, finance, romantic relationships, family life, spiritual development, travel, education, hopes and dreams, anything at all. To look at what's coming up in future, I look at your progress chart, your transits, and also if it's around your birthday, your solar return chart. And if there's anything around location or moving, I look at something called astrocartography to see how the planets were moving over different parts of the Earth at the moment you were born. And it shows me how different parts of the world are going to influence you. So how certain places will support you and how certain places will work against you. So if you have any questions or you would like me to look at that for you, any of those things, personality profile or what's coming up in future or location, then please do get in touch with me for a personal reading via the website gregoryscott.com. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please. Helps the video show up in searches. Subscribe for more videos in future, and share the video if you think it's interesting and someone you know may also be interested in watching this. That's what helps the channel grow, and I'd be ever so grateful. And also, if you would like to watch the daily tarot reading that I do on this channel, then please do become a channel member to watch those. Have a wonderful time during this full moon in Leo, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best. Take care.